I've been using the Samsung Z Fold 8 Ultra for about a week now, and there's a problem, but it's a good one. I need to draw a line under something in this video. We say Z in the UK. Samsung says Z in the UK as well. They use it in their marketing, in their adverts for these phones. In the US and certain other places in the world, you might say Z, and that is absolutely fine. This is the 8th generation of the Z Fold series from Samsung. It's called the Ultra now, even though it's actually the successor to the regular 7. The regular 8, the Z Fold 8, is now this, which I'll come on to later, because this plays a huge role in the story of this. All a little bit confusing, potentially, but it's actually quite straightforward, because this isn't a huge upgrade over the Fold 7. The Fold 8 Ultra is it's definitely an iteration. It's an iterative update, and I've got lots of questions for it. 1, if you skipped the 7, should you go for this? 2, is it still the best foldable on the market? 3, what's different? What has Samsung done between this and this to make this worth existing? And whatever the last question is, you know what that question is. We'll get to that later, but let's get into this straight away. Specs and pricing. I've got a whole bunch of numbers in front of me, which I won't bore you with all of them. I think I'll just give you the ones that matter. So the internal display on the Z Fold 8 Ultra, it is 8 inches. It's a QXGA Plus AMOLED 2X display. The cover display, which if you're new to the Fold series is it the main? Which one's the main? Who knows? Who cares? It's the front display, basically. That is 6.5 inches. It's an FHD Plus display. They both have 3000 nits of peak brightness, which is 400 nits up on the Fold 7. They're also anti-reflective, which is the same tech that you get on the S25, S26 Ultra. It just means that in direct sunlight, with big lights like this, it doesn't reflect quite as much. And you get that on both displays, which is fantastic. When it's open, it's 4.1 millimeters, and closed, it's 8.9 millimeters, thick or thin, whatever you want to call it. It's the slimmest Fold Samsung has ever made. I loved this. The Fold 7 was such a departure for Samsung in terms of making it thinner and slightly wider at the front, and it was a big difference for very good reason. This is the same basically, but it is just a little bit thinner. Imperceptibly so between these two, you can't really tell, but it remains the most satisfying and I think the most premium feeling and looking foldable on the market. If you don't agree with me on that, get involved in the comments. The chip is the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, which means it's the regular flagship chip from Snapdragon, but it's been tweaked and tuned for this phone specifically, which is always good news. The RAM, 12 gig or 16 gig, depending on which storage tier you go for, and that ranges from 256 gig to 1 terabyte. Camera system, 200 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel ultra wide, which is up from 12 megapixels on the Fold 7, and a 10 megapixel telephoto, which has a 3x optical. 8K video. It now has CineLut with 4 presets, so you can shoot in not raw video, but it's flat color profile and do fancy color grading afterwards if you want to. And HDR now works in 200 megapixel mode on the camera, which is good news. The battery, 5,000 milliamp hours, which is big for a Samsung Fold, and it's made from silicon kryptonite, which is important. 45 watt wired charging, 20 watt wireless charging, IP48 dust and water resistance. The price, $18.99 in the UK, and we'll put the US prices down here, but yeah, $18.99 in the UK for the 256 gig version, and up to nearly 2.5 grand. My voice went then, 2.5 grand for the 1 terabyte version. When it comes to colors, we have this, which is the violet shadow version, graphite, cream, and green shadow. And green shadow is the online exclusive, which is really nice. But what has changed? I don't think many people are thinking of going from the Z Fold 7 to the Z Fold 8 Ultra. If you are thinking of doing that, get involved in the comments. I'd love to know your reasoning for doing that. Not because it's a silly idea, just because I find that fascinating. On the surface, they look identical, and they are, to be honest. However, from what I understand, I've heard this on pretty good authority, or very good authority, that the design in terms of the materials used and just the approach to this is completely different. Most of this is a completely new phone compared to this one. The biggest difference you notice as the user, and I have used the Fold 7 extensively for a long time, so I'm very used to this phone. The one big thing I noticed when I picked this up was that The feeling of opening this is so much different to the Fold 7. It feels much more confident, much more assured, much easier as well. They've changed two big things here. One of them is the hinge. We now have a flex titanium hinge, which features a titanium alloy film. Very hard to say. Titanium alloy. It's got a film underneath the OLED display, which is less than 30% the thickness of a human hair. But, and this is the important part, 20 times the mechanical stiffness of the usual polymer film. No idea what any of that means, but it does mean that it's stiffer and, in theory, harder to break. You know, you can probably do that a lot more than you can do this. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of openings and closings, but it feels so different. You have to kind of do that with the Fold 7, whereas with this, it just opens. That has had a detrimental impact on something, which is flex mode, which is when you can basically put your Fold 8 Ultra like that and watch movies and things. It's quite handy. It's not something that I do that often. I think you can also use it as a semi-laptop, kind of typing away. Again, I don't do that at all. It does work on the Fold 8 Ultra. I got this wrong in my Fold 8 video. I mentioned that they'd got rid of flex mode on this. Well, it wasn't on this at all because this didn't exist, but it doesn't work on that. I did say in that video that they'd got rid of it on the Fold 8 Ultra. They haven't. It still works, but the problem is that it too easily does that, whereas on the 7 it doesn't. You can kind of, in fact it doesn't at all, until you get to a silly angle. It's much more malleable in that respect. But given the choice, I'd rather have that. It just feels so much better. And the other thing they've done is make it easier to open. And the reason it's easier is because they've taken some learnings from that crazy trifold phone, which came out last year, which you can't buy anywhere, I don't think anymore. But anyway, I've tried that, and it's a ridiculously cool phone, but it's very expensive and crazy, but it has a very, very good opening mechanism. So they've taken that from the trifold. When it comes to the crease, that's the Z Fold 8 Ultra. If I show you the 7, it's more noticeable on the 7, and you can feel it more on the 7. If I put my fingernail across it, the crease doesn't bother me at all, but if it bothers you, it's getting better. What else has changed? The camera system is pretty much the same. The big difference is the ultra wide, which is now 50 megapixels, used to be 12 megapixels. Everything else is the same there, apart from HDR in 200 megapixel mode that I mentioned earlier. The battery is 5,000 milliamp hours in this, which is bigger than the one in the Fold 7. I didn't have a problem with the Fold 7 battery life at all, but I know some people did. So if that was an issue for you, or if you didn't upgrade to this because of that battery, you now have a bigger one in here, and it is silicon. It's silicon kryptonite, which is very, very important. I don't know the percentage of silicon in it, but it is a much better battery. And in my experience, and I have been using this as my main phone, it's got a SIM card in there and barely touched my iPhone Ultra while I've been using this. It gets well into 2 days. No hassle whatsoever. And also the standby time is bonkers. Just going back to the camera system, this isn't a full camera review at all. You can find other channels that do that sort of thing for you. But as a regular dad cam, and what I mean by that is taking it out with a family, grabbing snaps of my dog, of my child, of whatever we're doing. It's brilliant. It does such a good job. It's reliable, it's fast, it produces images which look fantastic, particularly when you look at them on that big internal display. That's a big part of the experience with these foldables. The regular 1x focal length is as good as the S26 Ultra. It's just a lovely camera in that respect. The 2, 3x, 4, 5x. Remember, 3x is the only optical zoom we have here, and it does have that over the Fold 8, which doesn't have any kind of optical zoom beyond 1. It works in good conditions. 3x is absolutely usable in most places. Beyond that, you have to rely on good lighting, and don't expect too much because it is digital. It is AI infused beyond that, but it's a very good camera. I love the camera on this phone. It's a flagship phone. It should have a good camera, and it's got a good camera, and it shoots up to 8K video if you're that way inclined. The other big difference between the two is that the Z Fold 8 Ultra has One UI 9. I guess the 7 will get One UI 9 at some point as well, but the big differences there are Now Brief, Now Nudge. They've both had some updates there. I won't go into all of that because I don't tend to use it, guys. I don't use this AI stuff. The good news, I think, is that, I always say this, if you want the best foldable with the best AI experience, just get the Samsung, because they know what they're doing. They're miles ahead, again, in my humble opinion. But the big question is, who is this for? Things have really changed. Last year, I just talked about the Fold 7 and the Flip 7. The Flip 8, by the way, is here. Well, it's not here because I don't have it, but if you want the foldable from Samsung that does that, go and get it. It's fantastic. But if you want the bigger one, or the one that is more like that, you now have two choices. You have the Fold 8 Ultra and the Fold 8, and it's this which is brand new. They say that 7 generations of foldables has taught them that consumers need different experiences for different lifestyles. So the Flip 8, for instance, according to Samsung, is for self-expression. The Fold 8 Ultra is Galaxy's highest standard for performance, capability, and innovation, and the Fold 8 is for immersive content. Now, I'd slightly disagree with that because I think the Fold 8, in my experience, is just as capable as the Ultra when it comes to productivity. You can do the same kind of multitasking. I'll tell you which one gets my vote in a second, but it's very similar. And also, it has pretty much the same internals. So it has the same chip, the same Snapdragon chip. It's got the same RAM and storage options. The battery is slightly smaller, but it is still the silicon kryptonite thing and all that stuff. And it has the same wireless and wired charging specs. The hinge is the same as well. Yes, this one doesn't have flex mode, so it is worth bearing that in mind. But it's a very, very similar phone in terms of capabilities. The difference is, one, yes, the battery is slightly bigger in the Ultra. The screen size is completely different. The Ultra is taller and the Fold 8 is squat and wide. Internally, this is where things get really interesting. In different orientations, you can see that the Fold 8 looks different, whereas the Fold 8 Ultra looks pretty much the same. That's important because this has more utility for that reason. I think it feels more like a book like that, for instance, and a little bit more tablet-like like that, whereas this is very much kind of the same, really. It just gives you more screen estate all round. Oh, the camera. So the camera on the Fold 8 Ultra has the optical zoom, the 3 times. The Fold 8 doesn't have that, but it does have an ultra wide, which is important. And the price difference, £200, $200. Between these two. They're still both expensive. They're both very expensive phones. Oh, this is tricky. I am doing a full comparison between these two because there's a lot to talk about beyond what I've just mentioned. And for that reason, make sure you hit subscribe not to miss that video. But the choice isn't as simple anymore. Defining who this is for is a bit trickier. I think it's for the regular Samsung Fold obsessive. The person who has always been a foldable phone user, and specifically a Samsung foldable phone user. If that's you and you skipped the Fold 7 and you don't like the idea of going to a smaller screen, a kind of a very unusual and very distinctive phone form factor, which you've perhaps not tested before, but you've tested this one for years, this one is the safe option and it's the right option probably for you. Oh, the other person, so I am struggling with this. The other person is the one who wants a foldable of this size, but wants to know they're getting the best on the market. And this is controversial, I know, because Oppo makes fantastic foldables. Honor does as well. Whoever might be coming to the market with new stuff in the future, I'm sure that would be good, potentially. But Samsung, for me, they have the longevity. They have that many, many years of R&D that's gone into these. It just feels like a more polished experience for me. If you want the best of this form factor, get this. But the problem the Fold 8 Ultra has, and it's a nice problem for Samsung to have, is this. This, I think, is going to tempt a lot of people away from what would have been the obvious choice. In terms of which gets my vote, it's one of the best phones I've ever used. This is where I hand it over to you. I want to know in the comments, are you going to still buy this? Is this still the one for you? Or I'll see you down there. And remember, hit subscribe if you don't want to miss the full comparison between these two.